that doctors don't really understand, but anthropologists do. And anthropologists have seen what's happened. They can immediately identify, if they see a set of remains, they can say those are hunter-gatherers or those are agriculturalists because of sort of the devolution in health. And so that's what we're going to talk about a little bit. Now, how do we determine the diet of early man? Here are a bunch of ways, and this isn't even totally conclusive, but we're going to go over a few of these. We're going to look at some anthropological studies, stable isotope analysis, some archaeological findings, some soft tissue analysis, radiographic studies, paleopathological findings, and some jaw morphology. So let's get started. But before we look at these things, I want to show you what I think is one of the great thought experiments of all time. This is a woman named Leslie Aiello. And she submitted this paper to Current Anthropology. I was talking to her about this a few years ago. She submitted this paper and had a hell of a time getting it published. And now it's ended up being, years later, the most cited paper in that entire journal. But it's the expensive tissue hypothesis. And what the expensive tissue hypothesis is, Aiello and Wheeler, based on the work of Max Kleiber, who was this kind of quirky physiologist who was from Switzerland but spent the last 20, 25 years of his life at the University of California at Davis. And what Kleiber worked on, he wrote this book called The Fire of Life that you can get for about $250 if you want it. But what Kleiber worked on was he knew that there had to be some relationship, some equation that related size to metabolic rate. And so that's what he worked on. And he tabulated, if you read his stuff, I mean, horses and elephants and cows and dogs and God only knows what, and came up with this line. And this is an actual graph that's in the publication of Physiological Reviews in 1947, which was a good year because it was the year of my birth. But this was in there, and you can see the difference between medical journals. Now, I mean, that was the thing that was in the journal. It's all handwritten up. But this line is kind of called Kleiber's line, or it's the line of metabolic constraints. And almost everything falls on that line. I mean, there are a couple of things that don't. I think there's some kind of a shrew and a bat somewhere that don't, but virtually every mammal falls on that line.